Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR2 video. I am here with my Mazda Miata set up and tuned for Tempest 3 Tier 1. So the way I have the car set up is for the 285, I am going to minimize performance point and maximize Evo by leaving certain parts stock. As you can see, I focus on nitrous, tire, trans, and engine. That is because these parts give some of the best Evo points from the fusions at the minimum amount of performance point. So with engine particularly, the lower point has the biggest Evo changes with the fusions. That's why I left it in over turbo and intake. Body simply adds too much performance points, and therefore I tend to leave it out altogether because of that. We will put body in near the end as we get to the higher performance point challenges. This is different than some other guys who like to put a few stages of everything in, but as you can see, body increases quite a few performance points, but it doesn't really add that much when it comes to Evo points. And that's not going to be beneficial to us when we're trying to push the maximum we can out of the car with the minimum level of upgrades. And that's what Tempest is all about, minimizing upgrades to get the best performance. So ultimately, turbo stock, okay? Again, if you look at the performance point increase versus the evolution point increase, it's just not worth it, which is why I leave it out for now. These all will get leveraged later, but at the beginning, we are going to stick with this setup, which is stock turbo intake, stage 3 engine, trans, nitrous, and others. With this particular setup, nitrous being very important here at stage 5 and transmission at stage 5, you can see that the dyno is like a 13558. 13558, 5.826, and 104 mile per hour. All these challenges will exceed what is required for 285 without a problem. However, it's not just the dyno that's going to really help you out here. You need to be considerate of how this car has to be driven. If you drive it properly, it's very easy to do the challenges, but if you drive it wrong, it won't be so easy. So let's go ahead and show you how to do the specific challenges in this car. Starting with the speed trap. The difference between this and the others is you're going to nitrous immediately once you launch. So you're going to hit nitrous right away and then run the car out. By third gear, you'll hit the 60 mile per hour and you're essentially done. You can just leave it in third or you go to fourth. The point is that the primary 0 to 60 is between first and third gear, so you want to hit that nitrous right away and get the best possible 0 to 60 out of the car. The car is a tire spinner, so while that helps with the 0 to 60, you don't want to use that when it comes to other challenges. So this will be good enough to beat the 285 without much of a problem. So let's take a look at the next one, which is now the time trial. The time is particularly important because the bosses run a specific time and it's always the last race and it's the most difficult. To get the best run out of the car, what you want to do is launch perfect and then nitrous in third, not second. Second gear kills the run. Nitrous in third at 5K, but stay in fourth gear. If you shift into fifth gear, it'll actually hurt your run. So you're just going to ride out fourth gear in every upgrade level, and the car will get faster and the speed mile per hour will get faster, but ultimately you're going to stay in fourth gear. That gets you a 13585, which is not as good as the dyno, but the issue is with this car is that it rarely beats dyno. So getting as close as you can to dyno is probably the best you're going to get. You can also try immediately nitrous in third, but again, play with the timing and see what happens. All right, moving right along, let's try now to do the speed trap. Now, the car basically, if driven normally and left in fourth gear, with hitting nitrous slightly later, will do its best possible speed trap. You only need to hit a 75 mile per hour. As long as you hit over 100 mile per hour, all speed traps are going to be beatable in the event. So speed traps in this event is actually very easy. You just hit nitrous a little bit later, 5,500, 6,000, and then ride out fourth. You want to make sure nitrous ends right around the end of fourth because you're not really going into fifth. And this will get you the speed trap that you need to get through. So that will allow you to get through basically the speed traps, all speed trap challenges. Later, you'll get higher mile per hour in the quarter mile as you upgrade the car more. So that is basically your 285 setup, which allows you to hit the 104 mile per hour and 13.5, which actually is the boss time for the next bracket, 300 performance point limit. Okay, so we're moving along to 300 performance point limit. So 300 limit requires you to upgrade the car a little bit, but remember that the 285 limit challenge time is actually the 300 limit boss time. We were able to beat the 300 limit even without upgrades, but you definitely want to upgrade for each new bracket. In meeting the new requirements, you still don't want to do anything with body simply because, again, too many points added too quickly. Okay, you're right over 301 with just 3 stage of body without gaining a substantial amount of performance. So tire is fine as well. This car doesn't really need more grip. It's got a little too much grip as it is. So once again, since we already started using engine, we're going to see if we can fit more engine. No, too much at stage 5, but stage 4 might be doable. 299. Okay. Does that mean we're done? No. You want to play with other stages like turbo, for example. One interesting note about turbo is when you have engine at stage 4, adding a stage of turbo doesn't change the performance point. In fact, 2 stages does not change the performance point. Then that's definitely going to get added. Can we also squeeze in a stage of intake? No. Going back, and that should do it. 299 is fine. It's close enough to 300 that we can go ahead and go back and fine tune the dyno. Now, nitrous stays at 4.1. It's a good spot. What you're going to now have to do is retune some of the other stages, some of the other parts like transmission and tire. All right, I did a quick dyno there, but because you have more power, you're not going to move the final drive up. That's only going to make it slower. What you're going to do is you're going to move final drive down. There's obviously quite a bit of margin to play with here, so we're going to keep lowering it and try to find always the max evo setup at a given upgrade level. For events like this, you want the most evo possible. Okay, there's a big drop there, so that's obviously the cutoff point. Let's go ahead and play with tire, see what we can get. Notice tire can be a little bit grippier, but not really high grip. This car doesn't like 0-100 settings for tire. You're going to use minimum. So for 13.42, 5.659, 0 to 60, 100 and almost 106 mile per hour. That will meet all the target requirements without much of a problem. So again, a test run might be in order just to make sure that we are in fact on target for hitting those target numbers. Once again, perfect launch is important, but you can use nitrous first right away to get the best sprint possible. The one thing is that I should have maybe lowered the final drive another point or two for this challenge, because then I don't have to shift into third, because that hurts my actual performance a little bit. But if you leave it in second and is able to hit 60, you probably get a pretty good 0 to 60. Still going to be in the 5-second range, but hey, it's better than nothing. Let's take a look at this. So 0 to 60 challenges for the sprint shouldn't be a problem. 5.7, it's good enough to hit the target numbers. But as you can see, by hitting nitrous first, it hurts some of the other stuff. Okay, now running it for the other, such as speed trap and just the time, let's focus on the time. The speed trap, I said in the first portion that you'll always be able to hit the speed traps with these tunes. Okay, that was a good start early. That's always risky. You definitely want perfect, because this could hurt my runtime, and I may actually end up with a much slower than what dyno says. We'll find out when we get to the end. Again, nitrous in third, leave the car in fourth, but notice the speed trap is now like 108. If you shift into fifth, you actually slow down a little. You can shift into fifth once you have the car upgraded enough, but writing out force should do it. 13.438, close enough to dyno. Dyno is a 13.420. So good enough to make sure that you get through the next portion of the boss run. So again, at 299, we can beat all 10 races in 300. You may be able to finally, tweak out another point or two here, but generally speaking, this is good enough for getting through the next 10 races. So the next bump up is 310 pp limit, and with that, again, you're going to add parts, just the parts you need to make the car go faster. Now, with this car, tire, again, doesn't need to be tweaked just yet. We can bump the engine up and continue to bump turbo up. Earlier, I showed that intake tend to bump too many points with each stage, which is why I'm still leaving it alone and just using turbo, because the way the turbo and engine interact so far, the first two stages, the turbo doesn't count for anything. So at 310, you're able to put 4 stages of turbo in, which should add a decent bump in performance. So 310 points with these parts, basically just changing engine and turbo stages. Let's go ahead and tune it. The tune will change because now the car has more power, and it will now, with more power, potentially overcome the grip. So what happens is you're going to tweak final drive, get as many points as you can out of it, which is 369, but now we're going to increase grip and see if it helps. Notice now the car's making more power. Increasing grip actually adds performance points. You want to get that as high as possible. Always try to go for max evo when it's an event like Tempest. While this doesn't work as much for live, it's good for Tempest. And this car sucks, so get as many points as you can out of every tune because you'll need it. Keep in mind, my tune here is full fusion. If you're missing some fusions, you might get a little bit less grip and a different final drive. Don't get too hung up on the tune. Tweak it, get the max evo. Rico does about a 13.3 at the final of this range, so 13.174 will definitely beat him. The 0 to 60 challenge isn't that bad either. I think it's still in the 5.6, 5.7 range, and the speed trap's not even over 100 miles per hour. So you got it all. Now it's just a matter of making sure you can duplicate what the dyno says. The main thing is the sprint. You can actually now do the sprint challenge a little better too. Even though you're not adding grip, you're not going to suffer on the sprint. So once again, let's do a sprint run, nitrous right away. And you can see that you just almost touched 60 again in second gear. Again, if you are short on fusions, you may want to tweak the final drive down another 2 points just so you can touch 60 in second. That may help you get through a little better than what I am doing, which is full fusion. Fusions make a big difference with this car too. So if you're missing a lot of fusions on engine and turbo, my setup or transmission, my setup may not work for you. So keep that in mind as well. Now, 5.162 is well under what is needed. 108 miles per hour. No, I'm sorry. That's the half-mile speed. But the bottom line is that sprint shouldn't be an issue. Time shouldn't be an issue. And you should definitely be able to also beat the speed trap with this particular setting at 310. As you can see, the car still isn't that great. It's just not a great car. But be flexible with the tuning because it is very much fusion dependent. Moving right along, we get a big jump in the limit on the performance point side. You can now hit a maximum of 324. Now, the easiest way to do this, in my opinion, is to continue to upgrade parts that still does not trigger a major jump in the performance points. And that is putting additional stages of turbo and intake in, because for the most part, those 2 stages or those 2 parts, even when you add stages, does not add that much in way of performance point gains. So as you can see, 314 after putting both to stage 5 gives us a nice 10-point margin to play with. However, you cannot add tire or body stages without big jumps. So therefore, the only thing I can really squeeze in and still stay under 324 is 1 stage of tire. You may be able to, in an alternative, maybe put in a stage or 2 of body, but again, body tend to give a lot more point gains for very little gain in Evo. I'm not too keen on putting that in, so I'm going to do the way I have it now, which is tire and full turbo engine and intake. Tune will change again. It should be good around 2.6766 range, and then the grip will once again increase because now the car has more power. You can increase grip. 12 seems to be a pretty decent spot. 639. You can get 640, I think, if you combine 2.66 and the 1288 tire. 12.642, but it's a 4.994 0 to 60. Here's the thing: the 0 to 60 challenge is like a 4.6, so 4.99 doesn't cut it. Now you actually have to tune for the speed trap by basically reducing the nitrous to the most aggressive setting, tire to the most aggressive setting, but it still looks bad. 5.029 doesn't really help, right? No. This is where you're going to put now second gear to 60 mile per hour. I kind of hinted this will help with 0 to 60 even before, but this is where it really shows. 4.675. Not only that, if you run it, you'll see that by, again, using nitrous off the bat, we can get a pretty good sprint out of it because this is the sprint tuning technique for this car. Can you use this similar trick earlier? If you're a little off because you're missing a fusion or two, probably. You could probably try the same technique for lower brackets or even the final one if you're just kind of cutting it close. But at this point, your car really should be close to full fusion or full fusion. If you're not, when you get to fully maxed in the final 10 races and trying to get the boss car, you may not win Sneak's car. So make sure by this point in the event, you are only missing very marginal in fusions. All right, 4.238 should definitely beat that 4.6 challenge. So right there is your 4.2 run for 0 to 60 challenge. The speed trap is still no problem. And the only other issue is you're going to be kind of close when you're racing Rico for the final run. I believe Rico runs around a 12.7 for the final run. So you're going to need to do a 12.6 something. Right now with this setup, it's 12.8 something, which is no good. So you're going to have to retune again back to the running tune. So this is where a little tuning is involved. You can't just set it to one tune and kind of run the whole event that way. But moving it right back to the 1288 and then fine tuning the final drive here. Let me see. So 2.67 should be good enough. 12.643. Okay. Again, this car doesn't run dyno easily, so you may want to kind of play with the final drive a little, see if you can squeeze out just another point or two. Every point counts. But we'll go ahead and test run this setting and see what it runs. Perfect launch, very important. People always kind of mess that part up. If you mess this up on the final run, for example, if I got a good start like this on the final run against the boss, and I don't have everything perfectly done elsewhere, there's a good chance you're going to lose. Even this one is going to be cutting it close for beating Rico, who I believe, again, runs about a 12.7 and change, and you need to run like a 12.6 to make sure you beat him. So again, perfect launch is very important for this car. 12.693 is not that great. You can do better. But again, this will be enough to at least get through the 324 bracket and beat Rico and move you to the next one. And with that, we're now looking at your fully max bracket where you're going to finally take on Sneak for his car. Very important to understand something at this point. Yes, you can now put your car to fully max. Okay, so you need the fusions. This is the part where if you're still missing more than, say, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 at the most fusion-wise, and this is dependent on which fusions you're missing too. If you're missing fusions, you should hold off on challenging Sneak. The reason being that this car, even if it's fully maxed to the absolute best and fully fusioned, you're only going to run something along the line of a 12.1 or 12.0 and change with perfect shifting. If you mess up and Sneak runs about a 12.2, if you even mess up a little bit here, you're going to lose winning his car. So this is not a challenge that you want to mess around with. Tuning wise, I think that's 740 something, 750. Here we go. Whoops, lost that again. 750 is, oh boy. Okay, 2.6 something here. Let me see if any of the other ones can be better. No, no, that 2.66 I think probably is going to be the best I can get out of this. Bumping it up 1 point at a time is usually the way to see it. There's your 750. 6.7 bumps it back down, and 6.6 gives you 750. So that is the best you can do. Tire and nitrous really should be about 4.1, 4.0. Yes, that 4.0 gave me 1 more point, but in the grand scheme of it, you don't want nitrous too short. You want 4.1 or 4.0 nitrous so that you generally maintain your nitrous duration. Too short a nitrous actually will help with the sprints but hurt the overall performance of the car. So I'm going to leave it at 4.1 for the purpose of the run. 12.103 is the dyno. Maybe in the other setting it will be 12.102. It doesn't make that much of a difference. Not enough to guarantee a huge difference in overall run in the end. The key here now is not about the tune and anything else. It's about that perfect launch. You must try to get that perfect launch, and you're going to nitrous now in third just a hair after you shift. So basically shift nitrous and right out fourth gear, just like before. Okay, remember it's a quarter-mile run. Once you get to fourth, you should cross the line pretty quickly after that in the quarter mile. And that will give you a run of 12.118 in this case. Again, Sneak's run something like 12.2 and change. Very, very close, even when you get everything just right. This is where a lot of people lost his car because they screwed up a little bit, didn't get the time, didn't finish right. Now, the sprint is good enough, I think, to beat the final sprint. You shouldn't even need to retune for that. But this is the key here. Again, you can do the sprint, but it shouldn't be difficult to hit the sprint challenge. This is the same deal, nitrous first without even retuning. Let's see what we get on the sprint. The sprint should work out okay. The main concern is the final run against Sneak. Any little mistake here with that perfect launch, third gear nitrous, if you don't do both, your chance of winning against Sneak goes down substantially. So practice before you take them on for the final race. Now let's take a look at this sprint. 3.985, no problem with the sprint. So that's, you don't need to really fine tune. But if you had to, you can always put the 0-100 and 2.8 duration minimum nitrous as a way to help with that. And that kind of brings us to the very end of the challenge. This is by far one of the toughest challenges in Tempest 3 because you're forced to use a car that sucks, a car that you don't want to learn, and a car that basically needs almost all fusions to get through. So unlike Tempest 1 and 2, this is a tough challenge. But if you follow the settings that I gave you and always drive it carefully with the perfect launch, you will beat Sneak and will be able to get his car at the end. So any questions about this car or its tuning, feel free to ask me in the comments. I always try to respond to people when they ask questions. This is a remake of my old video, so the footage is old, but the information is updated. In any case, thank you for watching my video. Leave a like, share it with your friends, make sure they don't lose out on Sneak's car. And if you like my channel and want to get notifications when I put up new videos, then subscribe and hit the bell so you can get those notifications. As always, thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.